Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of the show will know that we are part of the Creatives Group, the private network for creative professionals across the globe. Together, we support you so that you can create at your best, connect with like-minded professionals, and therefore grow your creative business. That sounds like a good idea to you, and you'd like to find out more about joining our growing network of creative professionals, please don't hesitate to chat to us after the show. But this is On the Couch with Creatives. So, Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
So on the couch today is graphic designer and brand strategist, Daniel J. Moore. And he runs his own company here in the UK called Iron Dragon Design, which works with clients across many sectors. And he says his clients always want more, something more adventurous from their brand. So let's talk branding with Daniel, and let's get him on the couch. Hello, Daniel. Welcome on the couch.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you, Melanie. It's lovely to be here.
Daniel, let's start off with a generic explanation of what branding is. For people like me who don't quite know what it's all about, I understand the fact that companies want logos and they've got different colors and all that. But how would you describe what branding is?
So this is a commonly misconceived section. And the way I tend to describe brand is the brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's all about the feelings you leave them with, what they remember of you, and how you've and what impact you've had on them. And that's how the brand kind of works. And another thing I say so quite often is branding is in the eye of the beholder. So two people will look at one thing and feel something completely different, and that's fine. What we're trying to do with branding is attract the people that we want to attract.
And I've heard it said a lot across social media, personal brand and professional brand, and you've got to kind of meld the two together. Is that what you advocate as well? And just tell us the difference between personal brand and professional brand and why it needs to be. Can you not be someone else outside of your work, or do you have to bring a certain amount of your ethics to your brand?
I think we naturally bring different personas to different things, and I think that's fine. I believe that there is a link between personal brand and professional brand. That's mainly down to the fact that me and the word professional don't particularly get on. I see the word professional to mean to be paid for. Therefore, if you're doing something that you're being paid for, you are a professional, no matter how you turn up to that. So therefore, I think a personal and professional brand, yes, they can be two distinct things. They can be one very close, homogenous thing, but it really depends on the individual and how you want to utilize it. I think the most successful ones I see are almost like DNA, like a double helix. So they're two items that are close and that entwine and are always stay close together, but they maybe never touch.
So how do you build a brand? Because obviously, from what you've just said, it's not just about logos and colors. When a client comes to you, or a potential client comes to you and says, right, I've started a new company and this is what we do, and please, can you put a brand together? Is that what you do? You do the strategy?
Well, essentially, yes. So a lot of people say, oh, I build a brand from the ground up. But I build a brand from the foundations up. So start underground. Because as you quite rightly said, people come to me and say, here's what I do. And I go, okay, but why do you do that? And I take it a step back and understand that that those internal mechanisms and the reasons why and the reasons behind, because that's the things that people care about. That's the feelings and emotions we leave people with when we finished our messaging and we've left them in the room. So to me, I think the most important thing is pushing the strategy first. Understanding all of those things that make the brand unique, make the brand different, make the person who is running the brand different, and bringing those into it, create things down the road that are more honest and also more interesting to most people, or at least more interesting to the people that they want to attract.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? And has anybody ever said to you about their why, I just want to make as much money as possible?
Sometimes. That's my only wrong answer, actually. I think it actually says something about my brand, is that I generally don't get that response when I'm doing the strategy with people, because they've already got an idea that they want something more than just money. So a purpose-led brand, or a brand that is doing some good in the world, those are stronger brands than a brand where the owner goes, I just want to make as much money as possible, because you can't build a feeling off of that is actually honest to the audience, because everything will be put through this lens of they're just doing it to make as much money as possible. So that's my one wrong answer in a world of no wrong answers. Basically, it's the exception that proves the rule. So yeah, I think that if you are just out to make as much money as you possibly can, and that's the only reason you're in business, and this kind of strategy doesn't work for you.
Oh, I agree.
Let's talk. Sorry, Melanie. Let's talk about your brand, Daniel. Iron Dragon Design, and there you've got some sort of medieval sword on your wall behind you. Do you see yourself as some sort of knight in shining armor, ready to slay the dragon?
I wouldn't say it's shining armor, and I do less slaying of dragons than probably talking with them. But the armor's not shining, but I certainly am a bit of a knight. There's three things I describe myself as to people as: artist, adventurer, warrior. Because that's basically what I am. I'm not only a person who can get some really creative stuff going, who can also dig into your brand and look at the dark recesses of it, but I'm also someone that will fight for the brand. And I'll also that on the wall is a very physical representation of that aspect of myself and the business. I think also when I first started as a freelancer, I had that choice of going, Daniel J. Moore freelancer or branding myself, and I just felt that there'd be something stronger and more almost primal to the brand when I started to build it, and that's kind of what I started to go with this sort of almost its own psychological beast, really. You hear some of the words Iron Dragon and you get an immediate visceral feeling, and that's based on sort of our own sort of fight and flight responses and human psychology across history. So I always felt that I wanted something that was almost more than me, or not more than me. It was more sort of me turned up to 11 in some respects. So that's why sort of how Iron Dragon itself came about. But yeah, I always felt that it's something memorable. It's something that people go, oh yeah, I know, oh, you're the Iron Dragon, oh, you're that person. And it's also great as well because some people fucking hate it. But that's great because I've spoken to some of those people before and gone, you're not the right kind of client for me. So it's doing its job because it's getting rid of those people that I would be big red flags to me anyway, and I wouldn't want to work with. And it's only attracting the kinds of people where I get projects which are really cool and really interesting that I love doing.
That's a really important point, actually, Daniel. And a lot of small businesses, a lot of freelancers do struggle with that, especially when they're first starting out, they're inclined to sort of say yes to everything. And your brand does kind of get watered down, I think, a little bit because you're trying to be all things to all people because you want to pay the bills. But when you are truly invested in your brand story, one, it's easier, isn't it, really, to drive that business forward. And as you say, you're not going to waste time on the people that don't get you, because that's just fine if they don't.
No, it is. It's so strange. I had it out with someone on LinkedIn once about alienating people. And they were like, "Oh, you should try not to alienate anyone." And I was like, absolutely not. You should definitely try to alienate people. You should definitely go, you are not my ideal client, so I'm not going to be speaking to you. That's just that. Because, if you think about the number of potential people there are in the world that you could do business with, there are billions of people on the planet. You don't need all of those as customers to be successful. You need an incredibly small fraction of those. And yes, you know, your demographics, like your location may come into that, your sector may come into that, things of that sort of nature, but you naturally niche yourself down. And by niching yourself down to a personality type as well, you're only going to attract people who you really enjoy working with.
You've mentioned that your clients, you attract people, or your clients need to attract their tribe. What do you mean by that? You're talking about specific target market.
Yes, essentially, it's kind of just fiercer speak for target market, really. But it's a bit more than target market, because I don't know, target market feels very corporate. It feels very kind of like Terminator-esque, like I've got them in my sights and I'm going to hit them and then move on to the next one. Whereas tribe is something that's built around you. It's a community. It's led by a feeling of shared experience, and for a tribe to work, everyone involved has to be honest with each other. And I feel that's a much better way of looking at that attraction law, really, is if you're attracting people who will work in a community together, not only are you doing some great work for them and you know, getting paid for it, hopefully, but also you're building something where you can go, hey, actually, you'd be really helpful for you and you'd be really helpful for you. It's almost like a networking kind of tool.
Sounds very much like creators. Everybody, all our private members, we just seem to be like-minded people that are so prepared to support and encourage each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and attracting those right people. You know, we want people to join our network, of course we do, but we do chat to people first. And what we tend to find is the people that join are the people that are on our wavelength. So we've got a group of very nice, like-minded people who are very helpful, very caring, very fantastic ideas for helping other people, and it's building a really nice community vibe, and I love that. And we haven't had anybody narky, have we? Of course, we wouldn't have anybody narky in our group.
We've got a good bunch, and Daniel's a member of Creative, so he's one of our tribe.
One of our tribe, yeah. Have you noticed a difference, Daniel, saying about sort of connectivity and branding? Have you noticed a difference kind of since before lockdown and after lockdown, before the pandemic, after? Are people getting a bit more touchy-feely now than they were before? Is the corporate jargon beginning to get a little bit less?
I think it's a generational thing. And that's not to say that there aren't people in elder generations who aren't feeling this way, but it's become more acceptable for the younger generations. If you just look at the difference even between my generation and the upcoming generation, the way they work and the way that they want to work is completely at odds with you know, what was happening 30, 40 years ago. And I think the pandemic actually forced a shift that was well needed. I think this method of working and this way we do things is very different, and it's also led to this awakening of understanding people better and trying to solve problems rather than just trying to shift a product. I think people are more savvy with their with how and where they spend their money nowadays. And I think that if you as a brand have a duty to make someone feel a certain way to get them on board. Otherwise, if you're just throwing sort of like, you know, jargon and buy now stuff at people, it doesn't make them feel something. It doesn't make them feel involved, and they're more likely to switch off now. I think most generations now have almost an aversion to traditional marketing kind of outputs, basically, and it's fantastic. It's really interesting to see where brand loyalty comes into that, because you'd expect older generations to be more loyal, but the actual data says they're less loyal, because they'll go where the money is. So they're a generation who would have had coupons and used coupons, so they'll be led by those, whereas younger generations are led by things like ethical business practices and things of that sort of nature, and they'll build loyalty because of that. So it's fascinating to see how the brand landscape is changing.
Yeah. And
how do you start off, though, if somebody comes to you and says, right, I'm a plumber, maybe a plumber, let's go with a plumber. I don't have the name for my company. I don't have a logo. I don't have letterheads. I have nothing. How do you kickstart that?
Now that's difficult because plumbers are a tricky one, because traditionally all plumbers really need to do is slap a logo on something and be in a local area, and they'll get loads of business.
Okay, forget about the plumber. Let's talk, I don't know, pick a profession, pick an industry.
I mean, okay. So let's say an employment lawyer. Let's go with something like that then. So they would come to me and they would say, I need to be doing this. I want to be doing it a bit differently from X or Y employment lawyer, and I need to stand out for some reason. So what I would do with them is first discover some stuff about them. I think what people forget is that brand starts internally, not externally. It's no good being dishonest and building a brand that has no reflection of you, because you're going to be fighting against it every second of every day. So it's much better for you as a brand owner to go, I'm going to understand myself and my own role in this, and then I'm going to see how that matches up with my target market and where the lines of similarity are, where those points are that we cross, how I can communicate with them. So that's how I generally start with something like that, is we go, right, let's have a look at what actually makes you different, not what you think makes you different, not what the corporate buzzwords are, not what you think sounds nice and interesting, what actually makes you a different employment lawyer from X up the road. And then we'd take that information, we'd look at the market and see where the unique point of difference is, where they look, whatever their difference is, how they want to justify that. We would look at that, and then we'd look at understanding who would be interested in that and how we can attract those people.
Because it's about saying building brand from the inside. You're certainly correct on that. But another thing that's bandied around a lot is brand experience. As I used to work for Disney, so Disney, it is about the experience. Every touch point that you have with Disney is very, very strong. It's very connected to family. With Disney, you know what you're going to get. Pretty much. And it's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's kind of, whatever your output is, what do you want the outside world to feel about you and your company? And you help them with that, with imagery as well, don't you? Because again, sometimes you can have a great way of being, but not all of us are great at putting pictures out there, or choosing your colours or whatever, and you can help with that as well, can't you?
Yeah, precisely. And that's where this sort of the second part of the journey comes in. Once you've done that discovery, you can then say, right, we've found this one strong feeling or emotion that we want to put across in all of our touch points, but that we want, whenever anyone interacts with the brand, this is what we want them to feel. We can then start looking at the visuals and say, right, these things make people feel that. It's no secret that colors have a psychology to them, that shapes also have a psychology to them, and imagery also has that same kind of ability to show emotion. Pictures is worth 1,000 words and all that kind of thing. So the task then becomes, how do we translate that feeling and emotion into something visual that portrays that feeling and emotion? How do we make sure that even everything down to the font choices and the way that things are worded, the voice of the brand, how does that all say or give off the same emotion, so that people will come into contact in various places with the brand and come away feeling the same way? And not giving too many secrets away, but that's the challenge.
and do you help them design can you help them design their logos, because you're a graphic designer as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea of kind of what I do, because I started in graphic design, and then moved away into the brand psychology side of it and started to build that alongside it, because basically I got fed up with people coming to me and going, oh, whatever. Because it's strange, because people think that graphic designers want a lot, like infinite freedom. They think that graphic designers want all the space in the world to think about, to be creative, when actually that's really not the case. What we actually want is a set of boundaries, so that we don't go off over the hills and come back with something that you just didn't want. We need an area to be creative within, And from there we can use, that's when, you know, design sort of gets you get the best out of design, because you're getting something that fulfills a brief, that actually does what it should be doing, rather than something entirely random that may be brilliantly creative but doesn't actually do anything for the business.
So do you get into the nitty-gritty of when you, like, not just logos and colors, but also the fonts you use,
Yep.
letterheads and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So quite often after going on sort of the brand adventurer workshop, people will need sort of to readjust their brand. And so I do the whole thing with them. So I help them with logos, with font choices, with colors, with you know, the stationery aspect of it, and you know, their online identity and all of that kind of thing, because the worst thing when you're trying to do anything big like a rebrand is if you've got old stuff out there which is saying something different. So there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of looking around and making sure you're finding everything, and auditing and making sure that you've not left something of the old brand up in a very important place.
And that's a good point that I'd like to explore a little bit more, is that, you know, surely if you get it right with somebody like yourself and you've worked out your logo and your colors and it's a really strong brand, surely you shouldn't need to have to rebrand if you get it right. You only need to rebrand if your current brand is not doing what it's supposed to be. You know, Disney hasn't rebranded its Mickey ears, you know.
No, but it has changed and evolved its brand, and that's where the next kind of point comes in, is that even is that brand is often reflected in culture, basically. Starbucks, for example, is a really good example, because their brand has changed significantly over the years, because as our kind of as our trends in design change, they follow those trends and make sure they're continually staying modernized, basically. So even if you're doing everything right, there's a decent chance that, you know, 10 years down the line, things will just be out of date, just because of how we perceive things as a society. So that's when you go, right, we need to look at this again, because we're a little bit out of date. But the job of a good brand designer is to make those periods like further apart, basically. To make sure that you're not coming down the road every year and going, damn it, we've got to rebrand again. Because no one wants to rebrand every year. It's a nightmare.
That's, I mean, I see from what you've just said, that's more, I would consider more of a brand refresh than a rebrand. Rebrand is kind of like, almost, I feel like when you're starting from scratch, like, oh no, it doesn't work, we've got to change it all up. But if you're tweaking things to make it more modern, you're just refreshing it, giving it a bit of
I think the words can tend to be a bit interchangeable, but yeah, technically that is a refresh. But you know, it's not every rebrand has to have a name change in it. Sometimes it's a case of just reinvigorating it, and just giving it back its passion that it had when it first started. So and it's just a lot easier for people to say rebrand than refresh, because it feels more sort of more full in a way.
How do you choose colors? I'm interested in this whole color spectrum thing.
I've got a dartboard and I just chuck darts at it until
you're a very warm person, so I think your company needs to reflect more yellows and reds and autumn colors. Do you do that kind of thing?
So yeah, absolutely. There are fantastic ways of doing that, using things like autumnal colors and spring colors and summer colors and things of that sort of nature. So grabbing a color palette that speaks to you is sometimes quite a good way of doing it. But colors naturally give us an impression. So the weird thing is we actually see shape before we see color. We see silhouette before we see color. But the color brings the emotion into what's going on. So there's a whole set of color psychology, which is based on basically how a science called semiotics, which is the study of signs. And it's basically how we as a culture have perceived something and created an unwritten rule or language around something. So, for example, red means stop, because traffic lights, that's how they work. Green means go. And that's fairly consistent across all of human cultures. Is red is stop, green is go. I've got a great story actually about landing in at Tokyo airport. after about 15 hours of flying, and it was about 6 a.m. local time, and I'd gone into the bathroom to use the facilities, gone to wash my hands, and everything's in Japanese, and I speak a little bit of it, but I remember just seeing the taps, and one of them was blue and one of them was red, and even in my like sleep addled state, I was like, right, that's cold, that's hot, I know which is which halfway around the world because of this unspoken set of rules. And the same thing goes with color. Now, color can be interesting because in different cultures, different colors can mean different things. So it's important, especially if you are a multinational who is doing business in multiple countries, that you understand what those colors mean in those countries. Because if you use blue in one country, it would mean something cool or something technology based, it might mean something completely different halfway around the world. So understanding those things and getting those things right is again part of the brand challenge.
What about inclusivity in colours as well? Because, if you've got, cause that's something that crops up and has been cropping up. I've seen it pop up all over the place with, especially in like, video and subtitles and that kind of thing, making sure that your colours work for like the visually impaired, yes. Or what's the word I'm looking for? Colour blindness. I know there's very
well, technically colour deficient. Funnily enough, I used to work in optics as well, so I know all about this. Yes, that is again another challenge. So once you've done which is why you make multiple palettes when you start. You don't go, we are definitely having this yellow from the start, and that's that. You go, right, we've got different shades, we've got different hues. Let's see how they act on the website. Let's see how things kind of look on there. How would that act if someone who had red-green color blindness or something like that came in and saw it? Would it be difficult for them to read? So yes, those are also things you have to appreciate and have to think about when you're building a brand, especially bigger. Because if parts of your brand are inaccessible, those people are just going to go away. And if they were part of your target market, that's definitely a problem.
So Daniel, when Melanie and I started Creative, and Melanie's really the artistic one of the two of us, and you just look at what our background looks like. It's colors and shapes and it's everything. Because basically we're saying, our tribe is just every creative professional across every industry and field that you can think of where they deal with creators.
Yeah.
So you look at us now, and we've just got so many colors behind us. Do you think do you like it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got a really big sense of diversity, and that is part of what being a creative is creativity is incredibly diverse. I've got a bit of a bugbear around creativity and artistic, the two words, because people sometimes just conflate the two, and they're not the same at all. You can be creative without being artistic. Artistic is just a measure of a certain very narrow set of skills, whereas creativity can come in anywhere. Scientists are creative because they think around problems and they think and innovate and create new inventions, but they might not be artistic at all. So with creatives, it's especially interesting because you've got all these bright, you've got a really interesting split straight down the middle there, where you've got that kind of business oriented side of it, and then you've got the really funky kind of like artistic side of it as well. And I think that's a really good indication of being creative, because you can be creative in business and you can be creative in your own personal life, and it's a very wide reaching term, hence why a wide reaching brand is quite useful.
Here
you go, Melanie. Pat on your back.
Well, I'll let you into a secret now. My inspiration. I'm a huge, it's not even funny, Muppet Show fan. Muppets are my thing, and I basically all the colours is kind of like the Electric Mayhem bus. That's kind of what it is. And one of the reasons I love the Muppets is I was talking to a group that I'm a part of, Plan for Peace group. Is that I like, if I was going to be anyone when I grow up, I'd be Kermit, because Kermit brought all these weirdo people, random dogs, cats, chickens, bears, people together to create like this show, put on this show, and it always looked like absolute chaos, but they always managed to pull off the show in the end. And that's what I love about creatives, is bringing people together and letting them shine in whatever creative field they're in. And that is what personally makes my heart sing. So yeah, I'm going to be Kermit when I grow up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got a new nickname for you, because Melanie's nickname is Poppy, but now we'll start calling her Kermit.
Yeah, just call me Kermit. I'll be happy.
Everyone's going to wonder what the hell we're talking about next meeting.
Daniel, let's get to your 3 top tips for people, graphic designers, people who want to get into the creative side of branding. What are your top 3 tips?
So firstly, know yourself. Go on the journey of self-discovery for yourself first. You will always do better as a designer or a brand strategist if you're working with people who you can empathize with. And to empathize, you need to know where you stand first. So that's tip number 1. Once you know where you stand, build strong values around that. It's incredibly important to go in and make sure you've got strong values, because if you're doing design work or brand work for anyone else, you're going to be expected to understand their values. And if you can't understand your own values, you're not going to be able to understand anyone else's. And the third tip is review. Always be reviewing what's going on, understanding the changes and the trends in the market that are going on. And don't be afraid to look at your own things and go, no, this isn't working. Let's try something that's going to actually attract the people that I want to work with.
Fabulous top tips.
Good one. Now, of course, this is the part of the show that Melanie enjoys the most. She digs out her values jam card, and she's going to dig into your psyche a little bit, Daniel. Being a creative person, there's no right or wrong answer to what she's going to ask you. Just spew out whatever comes into that creative mind of yours.
All right.
I'll spread out the cards, try not to throw them everywhere. My party trick that I did the other week. Okay, I'll just run my finger along the card. You say stop when you want me to stop, Daniel.
Stop.
Right. Right. Oh, this is quite a good one for you. You picked enjoyment.
You
Enjoyment. So, as a creative, what does enjoyment mean to you, Daniel? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
So enjoyment to me is it's freedom from negativity almost. It's freedom from people being negative towards you. It's understanding what you like and being and liking it unashamedly. It's having a hobby. It's having something that other people will go, that's just weird, and you go, yeah, but I love it. That's what enjoyment looks like to me.
Fantastic. What does it sound like?
I just got like an image in my head of like the clash of steel. That's what enjoyment sounds like to me.
Oh, with the sword.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's that. I literally heard that noise in my head, and I was like, nope, we're going to say that. That's what's going in here. So
you must have been one of these little boys who always had a sword stuck in his underpants and flashing through the forest looking for dragons.
I almost lost an eye as a kid because I was playing that kind of nonsense. So yeah, it's very much, which would have been cool. You know, then I could have been an actual pirate. But you know, yeah. I'm probably quite happy I've got both my eyes when it comes to doing what I do.
And your limbs.
Yeah, my limbs. Yeah, quite handy that.
What's it
I don't have the designer ID with
enjoyment. Oh, sorry, I've interrupted you. What were you saying, Daniel?
I was just saying I don't know how good a designer I'd be with a hook on my hand. So
yeah.
What's it smell like?
Another question, Melanie.
What's it smell like?
Oh, what does it smell like? It smells like grassy fields as well. Actually, I think I need to get out and do some sword fighting. I think that's
blood and sweat.
Yeah, it's got that like metallic. It's got that tang to it. It smells of mead as well. Someone started a fire somewhere, and there's mead. So that's what enjoyment smells like to me.
You probably had a past life in medieval times.
There's a non-zero chance that that's the case. So
got to be some warrior. Your inner warrior fighting to come out. Well,
I would
love
imagine you are plenty of people's knight in shining armor. It's been wonderful talking to you, Daniel, and hopefully we'll talk to you again in the future. But thank you for coming on the couch and giving us a little bit more understanding about branding, because I'm a little bit confused about it. But that was fascinating. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Before we go, though, just quickly before I sign off, I'm just going to ask you, Daniel, what have you got coming up that people need to know about? Because I know that you have your brand adventurer workshops. Tell us a little bit more about those before you go, and how people can book on if they need to find out more about how to improve their brand.
So yeah, my brand adventure workshop is a deep dive into your brand and your personal brand and your business brand, and understanding how we can make an alignment and how we can ensure that you are getting the right messages across. They're a great way of discovering things you didn't know about yourself and your brand, and they're also a great way of discovering where your strengths and weaknesses lie and what you might need to do going forwards to build a stronger brand. They are one-to-one because it's the best way to work and the best way to dig. And they are so basically they're something that if you're interested in learning a lot more about your brand, just find me on LinkedIn, get in contact. I'm always running them. So yeah, please do.
Fantastic.
So
Thank you. The details have been going across the screen as in.
Yeah. So get hold of Daniel if you're interested in discussing what's going on and refreshing your brand. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I'm terribly sorry that I jumped the gun, but it really has been wonderful talking to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been lovely talking to you as well.
Learned loads and loads and loads. And if you want to find out more about refreshing your brand or even starting up, please do get in touch with Daniel. Seek him out, connect with him on LinkedIn. You really, really won't be sorry that you did. And thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our viewers for watching us as well. But until next time, we'll see you.